We're really excited for everything we'll be launching soon. Of course you are. But much of the discussion this week has been about how we've been canceling PvE outright, which isn't accurate. So I'm going to take some time to discuss some of that with you here. This is heated. This is already heated because, like, the fact that Aaron is acknowledging directly takes online about PvE not being quote-unquote cancelled is already unusual for how a game developer would approach communicating about their game, right? Like, already, like, you know, usually the policy is don't acknowledge the badness, right? Usually you're like, don't acknowledge bad statements or bad PR that because it draws attention to that itself. It's the Streisand effect, for those who are unfamiliar, where it's basically like, in attempts to hide something, you often end up making it more prominent. I've seen this debate. I don't know how Aaron will address it later on in the blog, but there's been this debate online where, you know, some YouTube videos inevitably afterwards were like, PvE is cancelled, and other people took offense to that or were upset by the phrasing PvE is cancelled because they were like, well, it's not cancelled, it's just severely stripped back. Like, I saw Nate's son, my friend Nate's son, reply to someone, and he said, well, in a way, PvE is cancelled because nobody classifies archives as PvE. Like, a Call of Duty campaign is not called PvE, it's just a campaign. Anything more deep than a campaign, it's not PvE, it's just a campaign. So, and I agree with that take. I think that's a correct take. When we announced Overwatch 2 in 2019, the idea for the game was centered around the PvP game we released last October. And on the PvE side, story missions and hero missions. Story missions focus on fast-paced co-op gameplay as well as stories, cinematics, and cutscenes that expand the world of Overwatch. Story missions tell a linear narrative about the heroes of Overwatch, reuniting and battling the new null sector threat, pushing the story of Overwatch forward for the first time since our original game released. These missions take place on huge maps with new enemies and new cinematics. We will begin to release them in Season 6. The work done here is amazing, leaps and bounds above what we've built for PvE previously in our game, and I can't wait for our players to get their hands on them. We'll be sharing more details there in the coming weeks. Hero missions, or hero mode, on the other hand, encompassed an in-development game mode that allowed players to upgrade individual heroes through talent trees, providing a deep, replayable version of PvE in Overwatch 2. It was a really exciting concept, something that not only resonated with players, but that the team was passionate about and really dedicated to. This is the mode we're no longer moving forward with. Okay, I'm already kind of like, before I read further, which I want to, because I'm curious about the clarification. Why not explain this sooner? My gut instinct right now, just up till this point, why not explain this sooner with so much obscurity and like unsureness of what the PvE was actually ever supposed to be? Why did they not make this clarification at the time of announcing the cancellation, quote unquote, of the PvE? Like, if when you came on stream, and I hate to beat the dead horse here, but when you came on stream and you spent 40 minutes rambling about Star Watch, could you not have spent another 5 just being like, hey guys, we're cutting back talent trees, but rather just being like, peace at that point, surely stop to be like, we just want to explain for a second what the difference, like what we're doing. What we promised you was story missions and hero missions, and we're cutting back on the hero mission part, and the story missions will still go. Because they just said we're cutting back. I mean, I still don't think this is great, but they were basically just like, oh, we're cutting back on talent trees, and it's not going to be what we thought it was. It's going to be a lot of co-op story campaigns or whatever. Like, what's the word they use? Story events is the word they use. Story events and co-op missions. So why not be more clear from the go instead of damage control later? And by the way, for the wider gaming community, none of this rather is gonna register. This blog is not going to change the fact that for the wider gaming community, they've already assumed that Overwatch's PvE is cancelled. To give you some context for this change, I'd like to talk about the past and the origins of Team 4. The Overwatch team was founded in the wake of a cancelled game at Blizzard called Project Titan. That game had many facets, but at its heart, it was an FPS MMO. Massively multiplayer online game for anyone unfamiliar, like World of Warcraft. The Overwatch team, especially at its inception, considered itself an MMO development team. As we transitioned away from that original concept and started creating Overwatch, we included plans to one day return to that scope. We had a crawl, walk, run plan. Overwatch was the crawl, a dedicated version of PvE was the walk, and an MMO was the run. Goddamn. It was built into the DNA of the team early on, and some of us consider that the final game a true realization of the original version of Project Titan. That is a very big reveal. So again, for those unfamiliar, crawl, walk, run is the Blizzard modus operandi. It is the Blizzard thing that they like to do. For years, it was not like something they said publicly. It was something they said internally. They would always refuse to say it publicly, but in private, they would always internally be like, we're gonna crawl, walk, run. And this was not just for the development of the game, but like for everything. So like when it comes to communication, it would have been crawl, walk, run, right? So they would have started with like, give them a little bit, see how they feel, give them a little bit more, see how they feel, and then give them everything. I guess to be fair to Aaron, this shows you the level of honesty of communication, that he's using language that previously was kind of almost explicitly reserved to not be spoken about outside of the internal workings of Blizzard. But it's a huge reveal to say that basically the team assumed, this explains a lot about Jeff Kaplan, by the way. Overwatch was the crawl, guys. Just take that in for a second. Overwatch was like the basic version of their larger vision. They probably never expected Overwatch to be as big as it became. And I think he's going to talk about that right now. So let me read this sentence first. When we launched Overwatch in 2016, we quickly started talking about what the next iteration could be. Looking back at that moment, it's now obvious that we weren't as focused on as we should have been on a game that was a runaway hit. Wow, that's a huge reveal, dude. Instead, we stayed focused on a plan that was years old. Wow. My mind is being blown right now, guys. My mind is being blown. Work began on the PvE portion of the game, and we steadily continued shifting more and more of the team to work on those features. Things rarely go as planned in game development. We struggled to find our footing with the hero mission experience early on. Scope grew. We were trying to do too many things at once, and we lost focus. The team built some really great things, including hero talents, new enemy units, and early versions of missions. But we were never able to bring together all the elements needed to ship a polished, cohesive experience. We had an exciting but gargantuan vision, and we were continuously pulling resources away from the live game in an attempt to realize it. I can't but help but look back at our original ambitions for Overwatch and feel like we used the slogan of crawl, walk, run to continue to march forward with a strategy that just wasn't working. We had announced something audacious. Our players had high expectations for it, but we no longer felt we could deliver it. We needed to make an incredibly difficult decision, one we knew would disappoint our players, the team, and everyone looking forward to hero missions. The Overwatch team understands this deeply. This represented years of work and emotional investment. They are wonderful, incredibly talented people, and truly have a passion for our game and the work they do. Okay, before I read the lastly, this is a crazy reveal, guys. I don't even know if Aaron should have said all of this, to be honest, because he's kind of just gone out and admitted that like Overwatch was like fringe to their plans. This explains so much about how the game was handled. I mean, we kind of knew this in vague terms, like people speculated this, but this is like an open admission that essentially Overwatch, the PvP game, was not that something they were that interested in. It was just meant to be almost the proof of concept for a bigger, better game. Like we know it was meant to be Titan, right? So here's the timeline. They wanted to make Titan, failed. They were like, okay, well, let's make Overwatch, and then we'll use that as like the proof of concept to then eventually make Titan, but in a different way, right? We'll eventually get back to making Titan, but we'll start by making this game that will like excite people and get money, probably the important part as well. Give us a bit of funding, Activision will get off our back, and then we can keep making Titan. What they probably didn't expect was just how goddamn popular the randomly, I'm sure they cared a lot about it, but almost nonchalant throwaway game that they made turned out to be a huge success. Again, cannot state. Game of the year, 60 million players having bought a copy of Overwatch 2 is insane, or Overwatch is insane. For context, or like 50 million plus, right? For context, I think Elden Ring has only sold like 20, 30 million copies. So even Elden Ring, a game that people consider one of the greatest games of all time, a masterpiece, did not sell as many copies as Overwatch 2 had, or Overwatch 1 had, right? I mean, it may get there eventually, but it still hadn't, right? It still hasn't for now. So that shows you how popular Overwatch was. I keep saying Overwatch 2 because I'm so used to saying Overwatch 2, but just Overwatch 1. So, it seems, essentially what happened is that they didn't even process for themselves what they had stumbled upon, right? They didn't even process what they had stumbled upon, where they had this great game, but they kept thinking, well, we can make an even better one, right? We can make this Project Titan MMO. Well, first was even the PvE, right? They're like, well, first we're going to make a PvE game, which will be, like, again, remember, Overwatch was the crawl. So in their mind, the walk, like the second evolution stage, was this PvE thing. So in their mind, they're like, well, whatever, we did the Overwatch thing. And this would explain why they kind of, after a while, stopped updating the game. Because it was not really part of their plan. Even though, like, the muddied communication made it sound like it was, we were led to believe at the time that Overwatch was a live service PvP game. It kind of wasn't in their mind. And so after a few years, it makes sense they abandoned it, because their mind, their vision remained, well, we're just gonna go and make the real thing that we want to make, which will then allow us to make the real thing that we want to make, right? We'll make the PvE game, which is the bigger version, so that we can eventually make the MMO version that we really want to make. So it really explains, like, a tremendous amount of what the timeline of Overwatch looked like and why it looked like that, right? This is incredible, like an incredible reveal. So, okay, let's move on. Lastly, people have wondered why this announcement came at this time. After Overwatch 2 had launched, we started refining our plans for future seasons. As those plans grew, we tried to find ways to make all of our ambitions fit together in a plan that we believed in. We couldn't. And we also know that we couldn't go back to pulling people away from the live game in service of that original vision again. So we made the difficult decision to cut hero missions and started planning for the future. From there, we needed to update the vision for the game, gain confidence in our new direction, and roll out the changes to the team. The decision was the start of a long process, not the final piece of it. This has been hard for us, but as the director on this project, I have to do my best to make decisions that put the game and the community first, even when those decisions are disappointing. In this case, I had trouble pivoting away from a vision that just wasn't working, and for that, I would like to apologize to our players and to the team. I'm sorry. We're focusing our efforts and our passion into making this game an ever-evolving experience. We're still committed to building many of the elements we talked about at BlizzCon 2019, including the story missions that delve into the next chapter of the Overwatch universe, new types of co-op content we haven't yet shared, and new stories that we're planning to tell both in and out the game. We're excited about this direction, and we can't wait for you to finally get to experience what we've been building. Overwatch was born from the ashes of Project Titan. It was a moment of metamorphosis for the team and the project, and something beautiful came out of it. This is another moment of change, and the future of Overwatch will be born out of it. Damn. This is crazy, guys. Like, this is gonna take some sinking in. I mean, the first part, so let's start with the first part about just the PvE side, which is that what they're saying is, oh, no, we didn't, like, you're misinterpreting our canceling, quote unquote, of PvE. We're canceling one section of it, but we're still keeping another section. Now, here's the problem with this. The problem is the real problem with Overwatch 2. It has been many things to many different people. It is like a beast that has no form. It just has many, like, stories told about it. It's like a mythical creature at this point, right? Or it was. Where vague statements made long ago were passed down from generations as to what the game was supposed to be. Because again, Jeff Kaplan says it's redefining the sequel. Says it's going to be like, you know, super replayable. You're going to be able to dump countless hours into it. Time goes by, And we keep hearing PvE is coming, PvE is coming. We get vague snippets here or there about how the mobs are being made and the maps are being done and blah, 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 blah. And eventually, internally, the Overwatch team are like, crap, we promised too much, right? They changed the director part in all of this. They changed, like, most of their team, to be honest. Like, I feel like the team that is here now is so not resembling what started before, right? So this team has changed so much. And in that time, what they're actually going to deliver has decided to change as well, right? They're like, we can't deliver the promises that Jeff made and that, you know, maybe other developers made along the way, claiming it's this, that, the other. So the problem is that they, like, in the mind of the community, it became so hyped that it would forever be hard to live up to that expectation, right? It would forever be hard to match all the endless replayability, the redefine the sequel. It's going to be this, that, it's going to be crazy, it's going to be blah, blah, blah. Anything less than amazing would have been disappointing in any way when it dropped, right? If and when it drops. Now, the problem that Aaron has is that he's saying, oh, well, guys, the PvE is still going to be the story missions, the campaign, right? Essentially. We're just not doing the replayable hero mission part. The problem is, and why I still think people are probably fair within their rights to say the PvE was quote-unquote cancelled, is that that was the real selling point. The real selling point was the replayability part. That was like what was going to make it different than just a regular story campaign. Like, a story mission campaign is great and will be great, right? I have no doubt that it will be entertaining, that and that it will be fun, and we'll probably all feel very emotionally invested because we love the characters of Overwatch, we love the universe of Overwatch. But I think for a lot of people, the PvE was this idea of again, and it's tough because we're talking about two separate games here, right? A replayable PvE is essentially two separate games. But that's kind of what was promised over time. Like, over time, it's kind of what was alluded to. But we go back to that problem of having promised in different forms something that was almost like impossible to deliver on in any way, right? The mythical creature could never really have manifested. And that's really what it is. From the start till now, the recurring problem is that we don't really see what they're doing. We're only told that cool things are coming. Now, here's the other caveat, is that they keep alluding to, like, oh, there's more stuff that you haven't even seen coming. Well, we kind of barely seen anything, is the problem. So he says here, new types of co-op content we haven't yet shared. Now, in a yesteryear, in a previous era, we might have looked at that statement and been excited and been like, wow, there's stuff planned that we don't even know what it is. We don't even know what this new type of co-op content is. The problem is the track record has essentially made it so that we have no faith in that. Like, that's probably garbage. It's probably like Overwatch, but two people playing at the same time, you know? So the faith from the community is at an all-time low. Just because of the track record, right? The track record of, like, promising a lot and under-delivering. And that's not, again, when we talk about, like, criticizing all of this, it's not that we're trying to, like, I have the utmost sympathy for Aaron. I have said time and time again, I think he's a great guy. Like, he's a really, really nice guy. I have tons of sympathy with him being in a in a really difficult position to be in, right? It's a really difficult position. I can't imagine the pressure he's under. He's been kind of thrust into this position. He has to deal with everyone's demands. And the underlying truth is that almost certainly Activision have screwed large parts of this, right? Like, we know from former employees at Blizzard that Bobby Kotick would come in, screw crap, like he would like force them to do these things and that thing, and waste the team's time only for those things to be scrapped, right? So there's a good chance that a large part of this, Bobby Kotick came in and was like, I need you to do this and I need you to do that. And then later down the line, it became like either the team themselves were like, we just physically can't do it, or Bobby himself was like, actually I'm over it. Change plans again. So I have utmost sympathy for the developers, but at the end of the day, you can't keep like hiding behind that, right? Like, accountability has to come from somewhere, and Aaron has taken accountability, but I don't even think it's as straightforward as like it's Aaron's fault. I just think that it's like a collective unfortunate failure from just the team and the vision and everything that he's explained as context of how they started off not even seeing Overwatch as the main game, right? They started off as Overwatch as like the fringe game to lead into the PvE that would lead into the MMO. It's like, it's partly everyone's fault, but it doesn't really matter whose fault it is, because we have to just stop and look at the experience of Overwatch, the history of Overwatch, and make a conclusion about how we feel, right? It doesn't really matter. That's I think the point that people seem to be missing, because I've seen a lot of the conversation around all this has been like, it's X's fault and it's X's fault, or it's Y's fault and it's Z's fault. That's kind of irrelevant. I don't even think it matters or it's productive to try and lay the blame. Because here's the thing, some idiot somewhere is like, all of this would have never happened if Jeff was in charge, or like, this would have been fine if it wasn't for Aaron, or it wasn't for this, or wasn't for that. That's just not reality. The reality is, there's no singular flashpoint, there's no singular person to blame. It's just lots of like little mistakes and muddied waters and things gone wrong again and again and again and again. Right? The end product is that Overwatch has suffered and Overwatch has not reached what it was supposed to reach. Aaron, kudos to him, sounds like he still believes that it's salvageable, right? Aaron seems to believe that somewhere along the way we can still reach like a glorious PvP/PvE experience. I don't think the community believes that anymore. I think the faith has been lost almost entirely. I think we'd be struggling to find anyone who would seriously, at this point, be like, don't worry guys, it's all gonna be great. It's gonna deliver, right? As surely nobody is left. And if they are, I applaud their resilience to facts. So I'm glad that Aaron seems to still have faith. Maybe he has to continue to be able to work in his job. And to continue to be able to actually like not just quit if he had lost faith. I think nobody believes it else. Like nobody else believes it. At this point, we're all just like, what are we even expecting? Like, I don't even know now at this point if there's a unified vision of what people are expecting or hoping for or wanting from the PvE. It's just like a bunch of random different things, right? For some people, the PvE was this. For some people, the PvE was that. And that, again, goes back to that original problem. The original sin of the Garden of Eden that is Overwatch is promising everything and nothing while showing nothing, right? Like everything while showing nothing. And here we are again. We're repeating the same mistake. Like, I just think at this point, just tell us what the vision is. If you now say that we have a vision, guys, it's different than what we promise, but we have a vision, just show us the vision. No talent, no progression. It's going to be a cool one-time experience, nothing new. That's the sad part. And that is the sad part. And maybe, again, optimistic people are saying at least this might restructure them to focus on the PvP again. I don't even know if I buy that. I think, again, I think that the PvP is as is going. Like, it will continue to be as is. I don't think they're going to give more attention to the PvP. Like, they're not going to give us more heroes or more balancing or whatever that you expect or more maps. It's going to be this. Just there in their mind, doing this for another 2 years is a lot of effort and commitment. It is a lot of effort and commitment. It isn't easy to keep making maps and heroes and reinventing the game all the time by, you know, coming up with new abilities and blah, blah, blah. But like, so I don't think that we're going to get anything more from the PvP. It's more that like people were hoping that there could be this and the PvE game. You know, people were expecting the 2 games because they were promised 2 games, you know? Like, yes, the truth is developing 2 games is like super hard. Like, developing 1 game is hard enough. Developing 2 games in the same team, impossible. But they promised it. So people are within their rights to look at that and be like, yeah, I mean, you kind of promised it. I don't think that it's wise for them to keep talking about like, we've got stuff coming, exciting stuff coming. Just show us something, man. I don't care what, you know, your marketing agency has said about the release plan and how you should, you know, generate hype by only showing this, that, the other, then and now, and, you know, 1 week before, then we'll show the thing. Just show people what you made, man. Just show people a glimpse of what you made. Show us what to expect. And like, that speaks for itself. Because I think people are done listening to the promises of what could come and what will come. Just let the game speak for itself. Let what you've made, what you've done, what you plan to do speak for itself. Here is, you know, 5 minutes of a story mission or whatever it is that we plan to whatever it is we plan to do. This is what you can expect, guys. What does Overwatch 2 currently say according to you? I don't even know anymore. I just think it's like, it was just a big update, essentially. The community asked for transparency. We can't be mad when they commit to it and release things like this article. I mean, there's transparency in terms of communication, but there's also transparency in terms of like, what are you doing? I think that's the difference. It's like, yeah, nobody's mad about this article. People are mad that they feel like they've been lied to. I think it's always difficult discussing things like this because someone is always like using a different yardstick than everybody else, right? Like, someone is like, but the community is so mad about this thing. It's like, I'm sure there's people who are raging unreasonably on dumb things. Like, that's forever. I think the majority of the community and the reasonable community is just upset at feeling like we were strung along for a long time, hoping for this, and that isn't what we got. And the other part is, how long did they know and not tell us? Right? Because and it may not be, again, it may not be a deliberate decision from Aaron Keller and his team, right? This is again where people just kind of obscure the point. The point isn't, did Aaron deliberately make the decision to not tell everyone that they weren't going to do the PvE the way they said they would, just so that people would buy battle passes and founders packs and watchpoint packs for the launch of Overwatch 2 PvP, right? That's not really the point. Or whether it was Activision, or whether it was Bobby, or whether it was some guy in between. The point is, it happened. And people are within their rights to feel like they were misled. They are within their rights to feel like they invested in the game, you know, either emotionally or financially, when the dev team knew they were going to deliver something that was different to what they promised, right? I think that's why people are angry. They're angry because they held out for so long. Dreaming of this beautiful replayable PvE campaign that's never gonna come. I mean, the PvE, okay, the story campaign is gonna come, but the replayable Diablo-like experience is not gonna come, right? The Destiny type experience is not gonna come. Or if it is, it's gonna be some other version of it. Like, it's so hard, even now, it's hard to say what exactly is coming, because we know these story missions are coming, but then they keep saying, oh, new types of content that we haven't shared, and new stories that we're planning to tell in and out the game. The announcement was before Aaron, as I see it, so isolating down what his leadership era has been. This was the result of something before him. Again, none of that really matters, though. This is the thing. None of that really matters. Unless they made that call at the time. Like, it's just not... It's not really relevant, again. It doesn't matter that it isn't Aaron's fault. Because I don't blame Aaron, nor do I think anyone should or gain anything from being like, it's Aaron. Again, I said before, it's Aaron's fault, it's Jeff's fault, it's Bobby Kotick's fault. I mean, it's probably Bobby Kotick's fault. Fuck that guy. But it doesn't achieve anything. The end product remains the same. It doesn't help anything. Unless at the time of Aaron taking over, they said that clear. Like, the only time it could have changed anything is if when Jeff left and Aaron took over, he said, listen guys, I'm taking over because we gotta have a different vision of Overwatch 2. It's not gonna be what Jeff promised. It's gonna be something different. At that point, I think people would have been like, okay. I mean, they would have still been mad, don't get me wrong. But at that point, they might have been like, alright then, makes sense. But now, you know, we kind of like had the, like Aaron was kind of like, oh, we're still going to deliver Overwatch 2. We're still going to deliver the PvE. And so the ultimate crucial thing, people just feel like they've been led on a string. Andy B says, Jared went into this in an interview, but making a decision to change direction was only the first part. We also had to decide how we're going to pivot and how we would communicate that outwards. This was made late last year, but the rest took time to sort out. Team restructuring, content planning, all that took time. Well, I appreciate you communicating that, Andy. It's just all a shame, really. When you look at it, it's all a shame because all of this would have been amazing. The crawl, walk, run is amazing. If Overwatch could have gotten this dedicated PvE and then into an MMO, would have been out of this world. But the snowball of like things going wrong repeatedly has left us in a disappointing situation. Let's just put it that way. Anytime we have to communicate something we know we will disappoint players, we try to be very deliberate in the how. I mean, Andy, I don't know if you will respond to this, but I'm curious if you would. How do you respond to the accusation, and that's not me making it, this is the accusation other people have made, that information was deliberately withheld so that more, like, purchases could be made for Overwatch 2? I don't know if you will respond to this, and don't feel like you have to. And Andy not responding is not necessarily a smoking gun. I'm just curious if you do have a response to, because that is, I think, the main part where people are rioting. I think, like, at the end of the day, when the dust settles, people will understand that making the two games was too much. And if we get a really fun PvE campaign and it continues to deliver, you know, because it's going to be a seasonal release, right? It's going to continue to deliver We're gonna continue to get fun stuff. People will enjoy Overwatch. I think right now the outrage is coming from the "we were lied to," essentially. The "we were lied to" part. You know, I felt like I was invested in the game. I bought these packs and this founder pack and the Watchpoint pack because I thought we were getting a PvE and I wanted the skins. The reality is the announcement in 2019 was overwhelming too early. This was an old wound being resolved by new leadership. This had to happen, it seems. It's just unfortunate. It's the truth is, and again, it is blowing my mind what Aaron has revealed in his blog. I understand why folks will feel like that. What I will say is the information wasn't withheld. We knew that we needed to shift late. Literally in December last year. But again, we didn't know what form that would take. Okay, I appreciate that, Andy. So, chat, what he's saying is it wasn't as clear-cut as some people have made it out to be, which was that, oh, they knew before they released Overwatch 2 that this was going to happen. So I appreciate that. And again, yeah, Andy is the community manager at Blizzard. Decisions are made in stages, folks, he says. And I appreciate that a lot. Like, again, I appreciate you guys. I don't even, like, again, I will have to restate because people come in and out the stream. I don't really think it serves anyone's help to, like, to blame people here or there, right? To be like, this is bad, that is bad. It's this guy's fault, it's that guy's fault. Because, like, it's just a messy situation. It just feels like in 2019, even earlier than that, honestly, it feels like, I'm trying to think of an apt analogy, but it feels like in 2016 they opened let's say they opened a nightclub, right? And it was banging. Like they had no idea. They thought it was gonna be like a chill little thing that 5 people would come to, and they had no idea that it just would like riot. The highest level has to be decided first, then the details have to work themselves out, says Andy. You know, Jeff unleashed this little thing. It grew to be massive, right? Like the nightclub was booming, hundreds of people coming in every night, and it's like it's an absolute rave every night. But all along, you know, Jeff and others are like, well, the plan wasn't for a nightclub. The plan was for a hotel, right? And a hotel so that we could then make a whole shopping complex. That was the plan. But the nightclub became so popular that half the time they're managing the nightclub while they want to make this big sprawling complex. So it's like they just like made like, so basically stuff is breaking all over, right? The roof is falling apart. There's like drinks being spilled everywhere. The bartender is quitting. The club promoter is rioting, right? So like all these fires are happening while the team, the heads, are still trying to figure out like, but we're trying to make the hotel. Like I'm planning a pool over there. I talked to this guy about making a Gucci store over there. And all the time there's the members of the nightclub are just like, yeah, but we wanted a nightclub, man. We wanted like we want just good music. Why don't you just give us some better music? We're just upset about the choice of alcohol in there and over there. And it's just basically a mess. It's just a mess is no better way to describe it. It became what it wasn't meant to be. And nobody could have seen it coming. And now we're stuck where like, you know, the buildings were put in. The framework was put in for the hotel. So the like scaffolding is there. But now they can't build it because it turns out like they didn't get planning permission and the foundation is rocky actually. On that one plot of land they thought would be where they built the hotel. Turns out it's got quicksand and it's sinking all the time. So they needed to like ship it. But at some point, they promised the nightclub goers that the hotel was coming, and now people are upset. Because they bought membership to the nightclub. They bought the, you know, members card. And now they're upset because they thought they were going to get a hotel. And it hasn't come through. And definitely the shopping complex is not coming through. For sure. I don't know if this analogy made any sense, but I hope it did. I had to wing it on the fly, guys. So, like, I don't really have anger. I don't really have... Like, I want to point the finger at someone over there and be like, it's this guy's fault. And one thing I'll say to you, if anyone comes out with some fucking hot take that it was X person's fault, that if only Jeff had stayed, or if only it hadn't been Aaron, they're just being an idiot. They're just being an idiot, right? It isn't really one person's fault. I appreciate a lot Aaron putting this blog out. I do. I really, really do. It's such an oversimplification how business decisions are made. And not just business decisions, but also like a live service game, guys. Like, you gotta understand that they're trying to manage a live community, right? Like, us. They're trying to meet our demands and expectations while doing a bunch of stuff behind the scenes. Now, again, and we can go back in the timeline and point at parts and be like, man, that was really fucked up. And honestly, yeah, probably the 2019 announcement of Overwatch 2 was bad for the game because it caused all this hysteria. If in hindsight we could go back in time and save Overwatch 2, probably would have been at that point to tell Jeff. And ironically, they probably announced it. I mean, the cynical interpreters will say they announced, because if you remember at the time, there was the Hearthstone situation with Blitzchung, which I will elaborate for those who don't know. At the time, before 2019 BlizzCon, Blizzard, and this was at the time a huge controversy. Since then, way bigger controversies came out. But at the time, a Hearthstone pro by the name of Blitzchung won a tournament that was being streamed live. And then at the end of it, when they were like interviewing him, he said, "Free Hong Kong, struggle of our time," or something along those lines. Then the development team of Hearthstone decided to ban him from future competitions and strip him of all his winnings and just disqualify him from the tournament, basically. They erased his win, which caused a lot of outrage. People were like, how are you gonna side with, authoritarian China as they're trying to, like, erode the rights of people in Hong Kong? And so there was a lot of, like, fuck Blizzard, free Hong Kong, free Hong Kong. Like, if you think the PvE dead chat spam is bad now, you should have seen the free Hong Kong spams of any Blizzard game at that time. So there was that. Plus, our boy Metro had leaked Overwatch 2. Or had leaked that there was, plans for Overwatch 2. Had leaked pictures of the talent trees and all this stuff, right? So, the community on one hand was upset, or at least the wider Blizzard community, and let's say Blizzard PR, was upset about this Blitzchung thing. And then people were like, you're developing this other game? Like, what's going on? There's an Overwatch 2? There's an Overwatch 2? What's going on? And so, the cynical interpretation was they're releasing the announcement of Overwatch 2 to divert from the Blitzchung situation. The middle cynical interpretation was that they had to release it because it got partly leaked. And then perhaps the optimistic interpretation is they always planned to announce it, right? And they just happened to announce it when they did. The problem is, in reality, they should have never announced it and just kept doing it. Here's the reality, cold hard truth. They should have just if they were gonna make Overwatch 2, they should have fully, straight up, let Overwatch 1 die. They should have just been like, guys, it's in maintenance mode. We're done developing this game. And we'll see you another time. And then, 5 years later, they come out with Overwatch 2. They have this fully fledged PvE campaign. And then they begin, right? Problem was, they tried to keep Overwatch 1 alive. And this is where, again, you gotta understand the complexities of the situation because they launched freaking Overwatch League. And Overwatch League is a huge spanner in all of this because Bobby Kotick, and our villain emerges again into the story, Bobby Kotick promised rich owners of franchises millions of dollars of return of investment if they back the Overwatch League, right? He's like, guys, come in. It's like $1 billion industry. You guys are gonna love it. Please pay millions for this Overwatch League thing, and it's gonna go great. And that creates a problem. That now means you can't just say, sorry guys, the game is dead. And that also creates pressures and expectations on the team as they're developing Overwatch 2. Because again, remember the context of announcing Overwatch 2, where they played that entire season of Overwatch League while Overwatch 2 was in beta. Right? Why? Because at the time, people were saying the Overwatch League bosses forced the hands of the developers. Right? They were like, well, the Overwatch League bosses were threatening to riot, they were threatening to quit, and, you know, Bobby Kotick was hella stressed, so he demanded that the Overwatch team put out Overwatch 2 ASAP to avoid all that happening. So, as much as we can, like, you know, people try and simplify and say it was a malicious decision that the developers decided to, like, withhold information to get more money for the battle pass, and that's why they launched Overwatch 2 even though they weren't ready. There's all these other factors that you gotta remember. Like, it's not as simple as that. Just the existence of Overwatch League muddies it so much. I remember a Reddit post talking about how Jeff never considered Overwatch 1 a live game, which is why they stopped making content. I mean, this has been a theory thrown about for a long time, but this blog essentially confirms it, right? Essentially confirms that they, at least their initial vision, never saw Overwatch as a live service game. Their initial vision was, we're throwing out this cute little game so that we can make another big little game to make a huge big game, right? So I don't think they ever thought they'd be developing, like, and remember the industry change, guys. Like, there's so many complex factors. The whole industry changed after Overwatch launched. When Overwatch launched, there were no huge live service games. There was like maybe a few, right? Okay, the MOBAs had like a free-to-play live service model, right? Dota and League of Legends had the free-play buy our skins model. But that was like it. That was like the only really like significant competitor. Everybody else was releasing games for a box model, right? Everyone was like, buy our game once, pay our money, and then off we go. And then Overwatch came along with loot boxes and started this whole thing, right? Overwatch actually, ironically, started the whole loot box craze. Because they chucked in this feature that maybe didn't, like, maybe wasn't thought of as a huge money grabber, right? They probably didn't think, like, oh yeah, we'll make billions from our loot boxes. But they did. Or they made $1 billion. And so again, TF2 had it first. Well, here's the truth, guys. No one gives a shit about TF2. Here's the truth. If you look at how the industry changed, it was Overwatch that changed it. So I don't give a shit if some like small-ass game made loot boxes first. I don't care if like you and your 5 friends were developing a game in 2012 that had loot boxes. The industry changed when Overwatch started loot boxes. That's what happened. The industry changed when Overwatch started loot boxes, and everybody decided to follow suit. Guys, I don't give a shit about TF2 anymore, alright? All you TF2 fanboys can go suck a TF2 dick. Nobody cares. I don't give a shit. Nobody cared about TF2 in like 2017, 2018, okay? Nobody cared. Everybody cared about Overwatch. And that's what caused this dilemma. That's what caused this dilemma. Because once Overwatch releases, then Fortnite releases, then Apex releases, then Valorant releases. And then the industry is totally different. Oh my god, I did not... Okay, guys, here you go. If you hate me for saying that TF2 is shite, you guys can leave the stream. That's okay with me. But, like, if you guys are gonna say... Like, I don't know why this turned into the TF2 apologist Twitch chat. I really don't give a shit. If you're offended that I say TF2 is shit, you're gonna continue to be offended. Because I'm gonna say it like 10 more times. TF2 shit, TM2 shit, TF2 shit. Right? There you go. Peace out. Goodbye. Nobody cares. Ask any, like, analysis of the industry. It wasn't fucking TF2 making loot boxes that changed the industry. It was Overwatch. And it's 50 million copies sold into the loot box system. Which is why people tried to fucking sue Blizzard and why the European Union made laws to outlaw loot boxes. Because Overwatch made them so profitable. That's why. So, like, I don't really care if you're, like, mortally offended that your precious TF2 game is not part of the timeline. But it's not. The problem is that when they released Overwatch 1, the industry was still largely a buy the game once, and that's it. Like, you buy the box once, you get the game, you play it for a little bit, you move on. But when they added loot boxes, and it wasn't just because Overwatch added loot boxes. Yo, Andy's back. All games that are considered genre defining usually have progenitors. EQ, World of Warcraft, TF2, and Overwatch. Yeah, like, World of Warcraft may not have been the first major MMO. There were plenty of others before it. But at the end of the day, World of Warcraft is the thing that changed everything. So whatever you may feel, again, this is where all the hipsters come out, right? It's like someone will be like, Michael Jackson changed music, and then some guy will be like, actually, Michael Jackson was inspired by this lesser known artist, and he was the real progenitor. Like, no one gives a shit. He ain't the king of pop. So, the truth is, the industry changed. Forget about just the loot box as well, but like gacha games appeared, right? Mobile games appeared to like a huge prominence, where we got like Clash of Clans, and people are dumping money into Clash of Clans. They're dumping money into, what's the bejeweled game? Candy Crush, right? Which is now part of Activision Blizzard, right? These games emerge, and industry executives realize, oh shit, we don't have to just make the game once. We can keep farming money by microtransactions, right? And that's what changes it all up. Probably. We're only speculating, but probably after releasing a game that they're like, okay, we're going to release this, and in 3 years we'll start working on the real thing that we want to make, the PvE. And then, you know, once that succeeds, we'll make the MMO. You know, maybe it's like a 10-year plan. Maybe it's like a 15-year plan, right? Problem is, that muddies the waters. Problem is, you now have a game that makes a lot of money, probably executives that want you to keep making money with it, and a player base that wants more stuff, right? So they probably have, like, let's have the hypothetical conversation between Jeff and the Overwatch team and Bobby Kotick, right? Jeff is like, okay, first they're like, we're gonna develop an MMO, Bobby, and then, you know, somewhere along the line they're like, shit, it ain't working, but what we can deliver is maybe like an FPS game that stands alone. And Bobby's like, all right, give me this FPS game. Maybe he pressured them to give them the FPS game, right? Jeff comes back. He's like, all right, Bobby, here you go. Here's Overwatch. This is what we're calling it, Overwatch. It's going to release now, 2016. And here's, like, we have these many heroes. We'll release a few more for, like, a couple years. And if it does well, we'll will hopefully make a PvE version. And he's like, alright, let's see how it does. Releases Overwatch 1. Mind blown. Everybody's amazed. Everybody loves it. Goes nuts. Bobby Kotick now has dollar signs in his eyes. Cha-ching, cha-ching. Right? He's like, you guys made $1 billion. $1 billion, guys. That's what Overwatch made. $1 billion. You really think a fella like Bobby Kotick is going to see $1 billion game and be okay if the developers are like, okay, we're going to peace out for like 5 years now, Bobby. It's just so we can make a PvE game that kind of expands off of what we did with Overwatch. No, he was probably like, you guys are making a lot of money on this loot box business. We need you to make more. Right? And so they become pressured to keep releasing while internally they want to keep making this PvE game, right? Because even think about it this way. 2016 Overwatch releases, 2019 Overwatch 2 announced. That's not even that long a time. 3 years is like not what a team, like if you were to develop a whole PvE game from scratch, maybe 3 years is like the short end of the development cycle. Some of these would take like 5, 6, 7, right? That's if you weren't making another game. That's if you weren't also trying to release, you know, live service heroes and balance the game and release, you know, quality of life features such as like the replay viewer or the looking for group. So like there's so much complexity to the narrative that like anyone who's trying to say it's this or that is just either being like a bit too emotional or just being a bit disingenuous. 2 God of War games came out by the time we got our PvE cancelled. Yeah, but A, the scope of what the PvE was promised was like twice the size of God of War. B, God of War was also not developing a live action God of War game, like a live service God of War game. They dropped it and then they started making the next one after dropping it. So while I agree, and I'm sure the Overwatch devs would agree, that they didn't do the most bang up job of developing the game as quickly as possible, is, you know, I bet in hindsight, they're like, man, I wish we had just. And again, like I bet they wish that they had just stopped developing Overwatch from the start. After like year 2, like 2018, they give us like another couple heroes, and they're like, all right, goodbye. Because it would have been a lot easier to develop this quietly, without audience expectation, and just like, you know, make the PvE whenever you feel like it. I don't know if I'll make like a dedicated SVB main video where I'm like, this is what I think about Overwatch, because I don't know if I want to do that anymore, but we'll see. Box product development is very different than live service games. I worked on both. I've been through other free-to-play conversions. There's almost always big pivot moments. I appreciate you being here, Andy. I hope you're alright. On a human level, I hope you guys are okay, because obviously this is probably the worst time you've ever had. Or I'm sure you've had worse, maybe you'll say, but certainly in recent memory, this might be the like most under the cosh you guys are. So all that aside, on a human level, hope you guys are alright. Will I do a group up again this week? Nah. I'm getting old, guys. I'm getting old. And I don't have the energy in me to make like rage react videos every 2 days. Like I just don't. Nowhere near the worst? Well, that's good to hear. I can't really remember what might have been worse, but maybe I'm forgetting. How old are you? I'm about to be 30 soon. I will tell you that much. So like, as much as I would love to make another like Overwatch is Dead video to flood your timeline with, I just can't. So I'm just gonna like continue to vibe, continue to play, make content, and then like it is what it is. A game I worked on years ago, I accidentally billed 32 months or annual subscriptions at once. After that, you get a lot of perspective. Oh, okay. Well, I thought you meant worst for Overwatch, but yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Andy came from EA, so in terms of shitstorms, he's seen plenty worse. But this definitely feels like a low moment for Overwatch. Time to make a React channel together with Samito. Like, again, if you want to see like live reactions, you know, that's probably where my B-side channel will go. Like, it'll probably, like I said, I might just bung this on the B-side, and those of you who missed it, the stream part, can just watch it again. But like, I don't want to be that guy. I'd rather like I'll give you my thoughts as we have done, but I don't want to be that guy who's making the Blizzard, like, you know, Blizzard fucked up, Overwatch is dead main video channel. So if you guys appreciate the content, I appreciate you guys sticking around. I hope you'll stick around as we try other things. And that doesn't mean that like we're done playing Overwatch, because, you know, Overwatch is still the game dearest to my heart. We'll still play it when we can. We'll definitely still play the PvE, whatever form it comes in. We'll still play plenty, but like, I don't want to sit and rage farm off Overwatch, you know what I mean? Like, I'd rather just like, okay, Overwatch isn't hot right now, isn't like doing great. It's not super fun right now. Gonna try and play a different game, make different types of content. It is what it is. And yeah, like we'll have another podcast. I didn't want to do a podcast today. I didn't know this was gonna drop. For what it's worth, we appreciate you, SVB. I know it's a challenging time. Looking forward to doing more showing now that the announcement's out of the way. I appreciate that, Andy. Appreciate you a lot. Appreciate all you guys a lot. It's tough because, like, I know the Overwatch team, or at least I've met them. I can't say I know them because, you know, it's not like we hang out every Friday. But I've met the Overwatch team, and they're lovely, lovely people. And I say that, like, and the thing is, when I say that, people think I'm a shill. Or when I say anything like this, people think you're a shilling. Because, like, occasionally I'll be like, well, what about in the human element? And like, all your upsetting aside, like I said, it doesn't really serve anyone to blame XYZ. And I just genuinely think it is a stupid take. If you see someone be like, oh, it's Aaron's fault, you're like, they're an idiot. They're like a really, really idiot. So like, the devs are people, they're nice people, and they make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. They've been handed bad cards. Like, sometimes, you know, like, it's a muddy situation. The problem is they're in a very high pressure job, which again, people will say, well, they opted for that job, so no sympathy. And yeah, that's fair. People have the same attitude to content creation, where I'm like, man, it sucks being told by 100 people every day that you are ugly and you're bad at the game. But it's, you know, whatever, people don't want to give sympathy, that's fine. You know, that's the job I opted for. So like, they opted for a high pressure job where thousands and millions of people are angry at them all the time. But it does suck. And they are also victims of decisions from higher ups. Most of them are just people working on a thing they love. And they're just making a small part of a bigger vision that some other guy is ultimately controlling. Right? No, they're very low on the totem pole. Like, again, they're just like someone who's making like the designs for the models, and some guy really high up, like I said. You know, ultimately probably Bobby Kotick or his like cronies are the only people who really have a big say on this. I don't even think Aaron gets to decide in that sense. I think he can look at a decision like this and be like, I think we have to scale back the PvE because we can't do it. But I think if he was like, yo, Bobby, we need another twice the size of this team if you want us to deliver what you deliver, and he's probably like, no. What do you do when you're Aaron Keller and you're like, Bobby, if you want us to deliver what we delivered, you need to give me twice the developers because this is 2 times the game? And he says no. You say, crap, well, this is the best we can do then. So like, again, it doesn't really solve anything to blame anyone. But yeah, we should be upset. We should be like disheartened, because that's how it is. We are disheartened. We're fans of the game. We love the game. Wanted to see this awesome version of it, and we never will. Or very unlikely ever will. So we accept that. And, you know, it's probably also a phenomenon of, like, live service games that, you know, people feel so attached to them as well, because... And it's different for me as a content creator than for you as a consumer. You as a consumer, I'd like to think, can more easily just be like, I'm out, peace, playing a different game. For me, it's much harder because, you know, we have a whole audience built around this game. And as much as people are like, you should quit Overwatch, like, it's so funny because you get, like, every day you'll get people be like, you should quit. Like, you'll get a YouTube comment or a Twitter tag that's like, you should quit, guys. You should quit the game. Protest and quit Overwatch in protest of, like, what they're doing. It's like, okay, that sounds great, my guy. But how would you like to have a quarter of your audience that you normally would? Probably wouldn't, probably wouldn't be great. So like, we'll try. And it's my problem. It's not your guys' problem. It's my problem to like find a way to pivot. And I have ideas again. We're gonna do, like I said, we're gonna do a week of Apex next. We'll see how that does. Might still, regardless of how it does, try a week of a different game as well. Put that video out on the main channel. And if not, we've got the Soak. And I have been meaning to put more time and energy into the Soak. My movie and TV channel, which I don't know if all of you will be familiar with. But !the Soak if you want to check it out. But yeah. That's what's my plan at the moment. Again, that doesn't mean I'm quitting Overwatch forever or anything like that. It's more fluid than that. Like I said, we'll still play Overwatch as long as it's fun, and we'll still love the story missions. But you haven't heard the Soak yet? Well, just check out the command there has brought it up. It was my first love, really. Was not actually gaming. I actually kind of stumbled into being a content creator based around gaming. I thought my dream goal would be to be like a script writer. Need to make a series or watch streamer plays different games. But that's exactly what we're doing, D1 Chili. So that's what we're doing starting Sunday. So tomorrow I'm taking a day off, and then starting Sunday, we're going to be playing Apex. So if any of you are interested, do drop by, lurk, watch, whatever makes you happy. And yeah, help your boy out. Why Apex? We're just starting with Apex. There'll be plenty of other games to start with, but Apex has the best, or I would say easiest crossover with Overwatch. Like, they're probably the most overlapped games. Do I have a squad? Nah, we're gonna do it solo queue, I think. Just to, again, I like experiencing the average player's experience, right? That's why we do the 7-day learning series with solo queue, because like I could duo and farm, right? Like I could grab one of my friends, duo, and then I'm farming on Genji or farming on Doomfist or whatever. But I'd like to experience, like, well, what is it like for just a random person who boots up and plays Genji in ranked? Like, what's it like for them? And it'll be the same with Apex, where I just want to see, like, what's it like for a random solo queue Andy to play Apex Legends? And, like, what are the things, what is the frustrations that a new player would have, right? Like, relatively new. I've played, like, a little bit of Apex, but not a significant amount. So I'll be curious to see, like, what my perspective is compared to, like, what a veteran of Apex's perspective would be, right? Because it's the same with Overwatch. If you ever, like, I met up with a creator the other day who's primarily an Apex creator who's started playing Overwatch, and it's funny because they're like, their complaints are so different from, like, what a normal like veterans complaints are. Yeah, Genji video hopefully will drop in like a week or so. We're gonna really make it good and edit it properly and stuff. So Genji video will come hopefully like in a week or so. Their complaints more, yeah, stuff like that. Honestly, like, they'll be like, oh, I hate Moira, but I love the skins, or I love this, or I hate that. It's like, it's interesting. So I'm sure my perspective on Apex will be totally different to, like, the perspective, because I've seen a lot of Apex people complain about Apex, and I see a lot of Valorant people complain about Valorant. And yeah, we'll play maybe Valorant as well afterwards, which I've only played a small amount of, so it'll be... I like learning things, Oh, thanks, Papaya King. I like learning things, like I always have. As I was saying earlier, I thought I was going to be... My goal was to be a script writer. So the Soak, the other channel that I have, is all like movie and TV show breakdowns. So the first one we did was on the Pixar film Up. One of my favorite films of all time. Then I think we did one on Haikyuu, the volleyball anime, and comparing it to Queen's Gambit, the Netflix show. Did one on the new Wonder Woman film and how bad it was. Did one on Soul, the Pixar film. Then we did one on The Last Airbender, Avatar The Last Airbender on Zuko. Trying to remember if I've forgotten any of my videos. But anyways, yeah, like Squid Game. Yeah, we did one on Squid Game. So, you know, that's actually the channel, like, I was like, oh, maybe I want to really focus on this. But, you know, it's really hard when it's hard to branch out everywhere. So if nothing else, if the Apex video fails and the next thing fails, I might just spend more time on the soak, because like I forever was like, this is what I want to spend more time on. But then you're trying to stream, you're trying to make content for your main channel, you're trying to make a second channel so you can have a more consistent output and have a more like it's important to have consistent uploads. So it was hard to find the time to then also, and mental energy to then also make soak videos, because they take a lot of time. And that's why, like, you know, we set up the Patreon for it and everything, because like the competition in that genre is like, you know, these video essay channels which will take like a month, do a crap ton of research, a crap ton of editing, and then put a video out, which I don't have the time for. And there's currently a video in development called Caffeine Calls Capitalism, which I will hopefully, I keep promising, but I will hopefully, you know, I'm going to start seriously making it now, basically, because I've talked to someone about commissioning some animation, so like some hand-drawn animation to go into the video. So like I'm going to give them a a bunch of prompts of like, this is what I want you to draw, and then they're gonna start drawing that. I've already written the script, I just haven't like started editing the video, so that will come on the soak. And then yeah, we'll see. I don't know, the future is fluid, and I hope you guys will join me on the journey, whether that's here on Twitch stream, on the Discord, or whatever.